Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church in Springfield. For over 200 years, we have been preaching love and the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Here, we don't expect to think alike, but to love alike. We invite you to join us in seeking truth and sharing love with our neighbors. And I have an announcement here, which I tried to lose. This is a notice from Julie. As we do each December, we are designating the World Food Program as the recipient of our share of the plate donations this month. Their mission is simple: feeding the hungry. They have the deep connection in countries around the world to access places few others can deliver life-saving food. Currently, they are responding to crises in Sudan, Gaza, Haiti, and Ukraine.
It's wonderful that we get to have Joe in our pulpit again. But I'm here. She's not. There she is. She's got the beginnings of a cold. So she's saving us from her germs by zooming in. Isn't it great that we have this option? Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Joe.
No, we have to do the bell and the
Bell and chalice, yes.
everybody. Thank you, Sharon. I appreciate having the option for Zoom. It makes it a lot easier. And as Sharon said, I won't be spreading my germs to you in person, hopefully. I wanted to share this, this image with you. This is the Chinese character for the word hand, and it's in what's called small seal script, classic Chinese character. But I wanted to have this for you while I read this passage by Dangming Dao to set the stage for us this morning. So this character is called shou in Chinese, and it means hand, handy, skill, or worker. And this particular picture is a picture of a palm, and maybe you can sort of see how it mimics the shape of a palm. That which is made by hand improves both the maker and the user. In the recent past, everything was made by hand. The objects that were made did not have the precision and regularity of machine-made things. In turn, however, the objects had spirit. Even today, the phrase made by hand carries a certain attraction. We associate this phrase with quality, care, and artistry. When we have objects like this, we feel a personal affinity with them. Someone made it with great attention, and we cherish it with attention. Those who make something by hand feel enriched by doing so. They are working on something tangible, something that can potentially outlive them. They have the opportunity to make things their way, to put out all the work necessary into them, to do things because they feel it is right, not just because it may be cost-effective or marketable. Over the years, their hands take on a wisdom of their own. The potter knows by touch when something is out of round. The furniture maker knows by feel when something is straight. We who follow Tao therefore value what the hand does. We want a personal relationship with what we do and how we live. There is no better measure of this than the breadth of one's hand. So thank you so much for inviting me back once again to be with you. I so enjoy having this time with you. Today, I am still going to be sharing a little bit of traditional Chinese medicine, or traditional Chinese, actually, in addition with some things from some other cultures as well, all having to do with our hands and the magic that's contained within them. I want to talk about all the ways our hands support us through communication, work, recreation, tending to others, and more as well. We're going to dig deeply into mudras, or hand postures. You'll have the chance to practice with some of those as well. So I hope that all of that has you seeing your hands in a new light. But first, I want to share some words from Lucas Hergert. It's called Your Hands. Your hands, the ones that you're holding together in prayer or desperation or hope, the ones with the tiny scar you carried since that bicycle accident all those years before, the ones that today may shake with worry or sit still from the gravity of headlines. Those hands, your hands. There is something to remember, a needful thing to remember about your hands. That they are the same hands that petted the cool, slick back of a kitten on its first day. The same ones that flattened the crumple edges of a construction paper heart after the glue came unstuck. The same hands that just last night pull your family's patchwork under the chin of your youngest as you whispered, "It's going to be okay," and wanted it to be so. The same hands that offered, in the simplest gesture of gift giving, tissue to a stranger, who, tears streaking her face, asked, "Why? Why?" Addressed not to you, but to God, asked of a world whose glue had come unstuck. They are the same hands that give the world its most needful thing. You know its most needful thing. You know because your hands have always given it, always offered or tried to offer the kindest touch exactly when it was hoped for. And you know nothing can change that, right? Nothing can take away the brilliant, beautiful power of the hands God gave you, not to pull a trigger, but to proclaim the softness of the world. Nothing can annul the kindness of your touch. There is power in your hands, the power of a kindness that beckons to remake the world always as though this were its first day. The Meeting House Singers will now lead us in singing hymn number 298 from the Singing the Living Tradition hymnal, Wake Now My Senses, and we'll do verses 1, 2, and 5. you singers and everyone. I have a story, another story for you to continue to set the stage about our hands. This is My Hands Tell a Story. It was written by Kelly Starling Lyons, and it contains beautiful illustrations by Tanya Engel. And I won't be showing you every single one, but I will show you a few, and I will eventually bring this book down to the meeting house so you can take a peek yourself at the beautiful images here. My hands tell a story. There's my Zoe, Grandma says, waving me into the kitchen with a floured hand. Can I help? Wouldn't be the same without you, she says. I wash my hands and stand beside her at the table. Grandma shows me how to knead dough into a ball that will rise like magic. Her hands tell a story if you listen. I was just a little girl like you when Mama taught me how to make cinnamon bread, she says. Ingredients are only part of it. You've got to get the rhythm. Push and pull, push and pull. I try to do like Grandma, but the dough bunches instead of glides. It's sticky instead of smooth. I frown at my hands and wonder if they will ever move like hers. Like this, she says, sprinkling flour like fairy dust and placing her hands over mine. We use the heels of our palms to push the dough forward. Then we fold to pull it back again. Push and pull until it's just right. I place the dough into a greased bowl Grandma covers with a cloth. Making bread takes time, she says. So we sit and wait. We sit and talk. Her hands tell a story if you listen. So here's Grandma and Zoe. Just so you can see what they look like as they're making their bread. Grandma holds her palms in front of her like a map. They look like roads, I say, tracing the lines. She smiles and they go places only she knows. Wasn't easy, she says, typing and filing until my hands ached, then heading to the studio at night. Some people said I should just be happy I was working, but I had a dream of dancing on stage. I picture Grandma in the spotlight, head raised toward heaven, her hands weave a world without saying a word. Then she takes off, leaping and twirling through time and space. Her fingers are branches stretching toward the sky. I look at my hands and wonder what stories they will tell. Where will they go? What will they learn? I glide a fingertip down Grandma's rose-painted nails and across her knuckles. I stop when I get to her wedding ring with flowers blooming on the band. When your granddaddy and I got married, she says, we bought a little land people said wouldn't grow a thing but weeds. But we broke up the soil, planted and tended, loved and believed. Our blessings burst through that earth. Yes, they did. Eating at their house always makes me feel special. Gifts from their garden steam in china dishes, squash and onions, collard greens, candied yams. Tangy smells tickle my nose and make my mouth water. I wonder if one day my hands will grow something too. Before I know it, we need to check the dough. I can't believe how big it has swelled. We flatten it, then dust it with cinnamon sugar. Next, we roll it up and lay it in the pan. I cover it with a cloth so it can rise again. Let's get some air, Grandma says. Outside on the glider, the wind whistles as Grandma rubs my hand, soft as a whisper. I hear murmurs of her hands flowing and dancing, praying and planting, stroking my hair when she thinks I'm asleep. Then something happens. I look at my hands, really look at them for the first time. I can see memories in every line, clapping games with friends, drawing my dreams, building and baking. Time for the oven, Grandma says, rising to go inside. While we wait for our bread to be ready, I think about the power in my hands. They can turn pages, color, and create. What will tomorrow bring? When Grandma puts down her crossword puzzle, I jump up and race to the oven. It's time. She cuts hunks of our cinnamon swirled bread. The spicy aroma makes me wiggle. I spread butter that melts into each nook. We take a bite and slap our hands together. Grandma stares at my fingertips like she's seeing something new. You have my hands, she says. Our fingers are long and skinny, sweet brown like sugar, made for holding and reaching. But you'll go places I've never been, Grandma says with pride. I see my hands raised in victory as I cross the finish line. I see them making music. I see them writing about Grandma and me. At home, I type on my computer and hear the tap, tap rhythm, softly first, then louder and stronger. The words fly out like they're sailing on a breeze. My hands tell a story if you listen.
I want some of that warm cinnamon bread dripping with butter. Would you say with me now the words of our affirmation? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve the needs of all beings, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with the source of our being.
We have an echo.
Yes, we have an echo. Woo. Maybe we need to turn the volume down, Bill? Oh, oh, it's his phone. Ah. We're going to take the offering now. As Bob let us know earlier, it's for the World Food Program. That's really funny. I'm going to get my offering stuff. How is it now? Better? Still an echo?
No.
Okay. So for the World Food Program and Food for the Family Center, and Tina and Hallie and I are going to regale you with Dona Nobis Pacem. Yeah, sing along.
singers. Beautiful. I forgot to mention probably the best thing about this book is that there's a recipe for cinnamon bread. So I will bring this book down to the meeting house for y'all. But right now, let's sit and take a little bit of time to meditate on our hands. Find your own comfortable seat, maybe settle in a little bit more, whether you're in the sanctuary or at home. Notice where your sit bones meet the surface underneath you. Allow your shoulders to soften down a little bit. Your hands can rest in your lap. So the resting of your forearms in your lap can allow your shoulders to soften a bit. If you're comfortable with it, go ahead and let the shades of your eyes lower. Otherwise, find something for your gaze to rest on. Nice and soft. As you settle here in this way, bring your attention to your breath. Without judging or changing anything, notice the gentle inflow and outflow. And let it deepen and slow to a resting pace for you, whatever that rhythm might be. If you haven't already, allow your palms to rest facing upwards. Maybe your fingertips will curl in. No need to invite any strain in here, just softness. And now start to bring your attention to the shape of the hands. One at a time, focus on each fingertip. Maybe it helps you to slightly move each fingertip to connect with it. Starting with the thumbs, that works for you. One by one, really bring all of your attention one at a time to each of these fingers. Maybe you'll notice the temperature of the air surrounding each one as you do this. And now draw your attention down to your wrists, the place where each hand joins each arm. And see if you can notice the boundaries of these wrists of yours, as well as the boundaries of each of your fingers. Maybe you can even imagine how a child draws the shape of maybe a turkey with each of the fingers being surrounded. So as you move your attention along each of the fingers and the wrists, allow them to come alive with this attention and awareness. And then bring your attention to the very center of each palm and let it rest and focus there like a laser beam. In traditional Chinese medicine, this area is known as Lao Gong, or the Palace of Toil. It's the place from which you take in energy from the world and the place through which you share of yourself. So consider all the things you do every day, the work that you do, maybe building, baking, creating, shaking hands when you meet somebody new, and placing a hand on somebody's shoulder to comfort them, and gathering tiny seeds in preparation for planting them. So many like small, tiny actions and so many large, momentous ones as well. In traditional Chinese medicine, this area is mostly used for acupressure instead of acupuncture. And it's a point on the pericardium meridian. And pericardium is in Western medicine, as well, is known as the protective sac around the heart. So this point is known and thought to be a direct conduit to our heart. So it expresses our emotions and takes in the care that we might need right through our hands. So for this reason, it's believed to help calm the spirit. Take a few moments now to connect your breath to this place in each of your palms. Inhaling to draw in the support of all of those around you, in person, virtually. And then exhaling to share yourself with the world in so many different ways that you do. Now allow your awareness to start to expand outward, taking in the whole of each of the hands once again. Notice your arms. What connects your hands to your shoulders? Down to your seat, maybe your feet supporting you. Expand your awareness to the others surrounding you. Again, either in person in a sanctuary or virtually through space and time, maybe on the recording. And give yourself permission to have this expanded, greater awareness of your hands and all that they do and how you interact with the world. The Meeting House Singers will now lead us in song number 121, We'll Build a Land, from your hymnal.
We'll build a
once again. All right. Well, we've had some beautiful music so far this morning, very inspirational, as well as our readings, kind of laying the groundwork for what comes through our hands from our ancestors. But I want to start to ground us in the present moment and what is actually happening in our hands each and every day, to kind of tie some things together. So we'll start to take a closer look at mudras, are hand postures, hand shapes. And hopefully I can share and impart some of the knowledge that I've learned over the past 8 years or so, that you can begin to look at your hands and what they do in a new light, as I think they're pretty special things. All right, so we're going to really be doing a overview of what's a very deep subject. There's hundreds of hand postures or hand shapes that have been used over time. And I want to give you a little bit of background, share some practices, simple practices with you, give you some tips for focusing your attention on your hands. And throughout this little talk that I prepared for you, there's some images on these slides of myself sharing some of these hand shapes, some of these different hand shapes. And we're not going to have time to go over all of them, but feel free as you see them to try them in your own body and see what you feel. We'll have time at the end if you want to ask any specific questions or share your experiences. But they are beautiful and often quite simple, and maybe can change how you feel in your body as well. That's what I'm hoping for you. But to start, I thought we would try a few things in an effort for me to show you how simple and everyday these things are. So I'm going to show you some hand gestures, and if you're in the sanctuary, just go ahead and shout out maybe a quality or how it makes you feel, or what sort of what sort of feeling you get by seeing this hand shape. And if you're online, you can maybe put it in the chat. I have lost my chat here. But definitely share what you're noticing about these hand gestures. So what if I do this? How does that make you feel? Shout it out.
Connected.
Connected, I think I heard.
Yes.
Good. It's a wave, right? I'm waving. And what if I came up to you and I extended my hand to you?
Welcome.
Welcome. Yep. Great. So I'm going to shake your hand, right? That's how we greet each other often. And then conversely, what if I do this?
Hurt. Anger.
Anger, hurt. So there's emotions that are connected right away with these shapes that we make with our hands every day. And it's nonverbal, right? I didn't have to say anything. I'm trying very hard with those to not do anything with my face, because normally, right, I'd have an angry face when I did that. We'd bring our whole body into it. So to continue that, our whole body, what if I am like this?
Stop.
Angry, maybe pissed off a little bit, standoffish. We already did the clenched fists. What about, I'm going to lean close. What about this?
Nosy.
Can you see my eyebrows?
Yeah. Surprise,
right? So it's actually not just our hands. Our hands started, but our whole face or our whole body can get involved. And finally, what about this one?
Sad.
Yep, sad. So we know it's a universal language that we share with each other. And for the most part, we can go from country to country, and these things will be similar wherever we go. They'll have a similar response. All right. the definition of this word mudras, which we'll dive into on the next slide here, is the gestures of the hands, face, and body to make a physical or psychological change in the body and maybe have a spiritual awakening. Any one of those, I think, is pretty important, and definitely impacts our emotions, as we saw, right, with some of these. Our whole emotional state gets involved just from our hands. All right, so the word itself, mudra, it's from Sanskrit and Sanskrit Devanagari, so it has that long A, mudra, at the end. So it's a gesture, seal, attitude, it's a signature. The word, the short word mood actually means delight, or pleasure, enchantment. And rati, which is the second part of this word, means to bring forth. So to bring forth pleasure or enchantment. How lovely, right? That sounds beautiful. So let's look at the history a little bit here. So more than 2,000 years of history have we seen hands kind of be pictured, because we're going to look at images through time, and this is where we know that these gestures originated. So first, through the Indian spiritual traditions, around the 6th century BCE in Buddhism, we start to see deities embodying spiritual qualities through hand postures. On the left here, this is Durga, and she has her hand extended like this. And I'll tell you in a moment, when we get through the rest of the history, what this is all about here. So moving on, ancient Greece to Rome, still through the BCE years. In Rome, there were actually dance competitions that involved hand postures. And as we talked about as well already, eye and body postures, they were all incorporated. And Christianity specifically, hundreds of years BCE, and through Christianity, we can start to see images of Jesus. Actually, that wouldn't be BCE. That doesn't really make sense, but Christianity and then images of Jesus, with this, specifically this hand extended again. And here's a drawing of that. And with this drawing, I'm going to put as a little bonus, bring your attention to Jesus's hand at his heart. And those of you who have been with me previously, I think more than once, we have done some work with this acupressure point right at the center of the chest, connecting immediately to the heart. So wow, right? A little heart expansion going on there with acupressure right at the heart center. So that's beautiful. Jesus knew acupressure inherently. That's how acupressure started. It's really inherent. All right, moving on, and this final image over on the right, this Renaissance painting about the 14th century. Again, I think this person is probably saying, I'm done with the beer. He looks like they look like they might be at a bar and they're saying like, no more beer, but still the hand is raised in this way. And then during the 5th to the 15th century, mudra evolved into what we know it as today, which we'll be talking about today. So this looks pretty similar to that wave that I was doing earlier, which, you know, for most of us, we think is pretty friendly or welcoming, I think was a word that people used. This hand posture is called abhaya, and it is a gesture of fearlessness. And also that I'm showing my hand to you. I'm literally showing my hand to you. I have no weapons. I have nothing to hide. So when you see that in different sorts of imagery, that's what's going on there. Pretty wild. And interesting that that's turned into our wave, right? When we greet people, we have no weapons. Yes, I'm welcome and friendly. So moving on, mudras started to become incorporated with the practice of hatha yoga, which is physical postures. And especially in India, they were incorporated just like those Roman dance competitions into this really beautiful and elaborate dance that involved not just hands, but also eyes and the whole body. And then to take that into present day with the whole body, this, what looks like a yoga posture, you may have done it, called legs up the wall, where we rest on our backs and allow our legs to extend up the wall. It is actually considered a full body mudra, or a full body prayer. It is a way to share your experience of your subtle energy for extended periods of time, because this is a really restful and beautiful posture, not just for yourself, but it's also emanates this quality of relaxation and unity and limitlessness. It has a lot of those qualities embodied right in it. All right, so it's really a universal language, and this hand posture is another one that I think is quite universal. Anjali Mudra, where we bring the right and left together in a gesture of, so many things: humbleness, gratitude, thankfulness. And when we bring it up to our forehead, there's a sense of spirituality there as well. So this all gives us a way to communicate with each other without even using words. And now there is an emoji for this even, right? So it has moved into the digital age as well. Okay, so hand postures are useful for a variety of reasons as well, like sort of practical physical reasons. Our fingers have a lot of nerve endings, so there's a direct communication to the brain and the rest of the body. It's how we perceive the world. Babies, touch and feel things around them to understand the world around them. Our hands are dexterous, maybe less so as we age and with arthritis. So it's useful to move your hands in many different ways. It's exercise for your hands. And that's healthy for us as well. So there are lots of meanings through different cultures, through the years, for each hand, for each finger, meaning specifically behind them, and it's why we do things a certain way when we perform a hand posture. They have associations with, in traditional Chinese medicine, with meridians. We already mentioned the Lao Gong point right at the center of your palms. But there's associations with planets and qualities, elements, all sorts of things. So instead of diving into all of that, the nice, simple thing to know is something that we've talked about again and again, and it's great to revisit it, which is yin and yang. Your left hand is thought to be more yin, or have yin qualities. It tends to be considered passive, and the hand through which you receive. Now, of course, we receive things through our right hand as well, but when it comes to a hand posture, it's usually the one that is in the receiving position. And then conversely, your right hand is considered yang, where it is more active, and it's the giving hand. So as you go through your day, you might want to think about those two qualities, and if that is true in your own body, because that might not really resonate so much with you. There's something to think about. All right, so when doing these mudras, and could be as simple as some of these ones we've done already, you can do them any place, anytime. It helps if you're comfortable. It helps if you're quiet. You don't necessarily need to be. We don't always have that luxury. And you could do them for a few moments at a time, or up to 5 minutes or so. As we did simply by resting our hands in our lap earlier and focusing our attention at that Lao Gong point, really let the gesture or the shape of your hands and your body guide your breath, and just be taken on sort of a sensory tour of what's happening in your hands. This hand posture, there's two of them that are related, are about the gesture of the base of your spine and the upper spine. Just kind of interesting. All right. So I wanted to give you one mudra. Again, there are hundreds, but I wanted to give you one specifically today to try out in your body. And this one's called Pushpanjali Mudra. So similar to what you did earlier, I'm going to show you the shape in my hands, but this is going to be happening in your lap. So your shoulders are nice and relaxed and your hands are palms up in your lap. But allow the edges of your pinkies to come together and the next finger over. Allow those two things to connect with each other. And the rest of the hands and fingers just nice and soft. So bring this shape into your lap. So your shoulders are relaxed. Maybe your breath starts to slow a little bit. Feel free to close your eyes if you'd like, if that helps you feel the nerve endings in your hands a little bit more. So this hand posture is about releasing attachments. Maybe you can imagine anything that you've been holding on to, overly holding on to, simply lifting off the surface of your hands and floating away. It's also considered a posture or a gesture of generosity. This is known as offering of flowers in Sanskrit. So maybe you're imagining holding in that bowl-like shape, offering flowers to someone as a gesture of kindness, generosity. And see if you notice any sensation or emotion around the feeling of relaxation here. There's some surrender happening without pushing anything on anyone. Quality of softness. As it feels right for you, you can let this go. Maybe separate your hands. It's always helpful to circle wrists. Maybe some jazz hands or shaking out. Hands together. We've done this before. And allow your hands to rest again in your lap, shoulders down. And see what you might notice. Anyone got anything they'd like to share from that? I lost my chat, but if you're in the sanctuary and you want to speak out, you may.
I'm very calm.
That's good to hear. I find this one, yes, beautiful and calming. And it's so simple, right? And the thing that I really like about these, and actually I'm gonna move on because so I don't steal my next slide here, is you can do these simple shapes throughout the day. They don't need to be exact. They don't need to, you don't need to buy a book and learn exactly what's going on with your hands, but maybe just noticing how you're holding your hands through the day. When I started doing this, I found myself often during the day having clenched fists, like for really no reason. Obviously, I was feeling something, but noticing this and then allowing them to soften and seeing how that might change my physiology. I think that's helpful. Trust yourself as you start to explore what's going on with your hands. Again, you don't need a book to tell you how to do things a certain way, but if you have a certain feeling when you're holding your hands a certain way, go with that, right? You know your body best for sure. So position, things like that, that's important. but what you think is number one for sure. All right. I know I went through that fast, but I'm wondering if anybody has any questions or anything they want to
Yes.
share.
Yes.
Yeah, I have this position, I use this position a lot, but I'm not sure what it signifies, this. Yeah.
Let me,
It's very relaxing and
Yeah.
when you clasp your fingers together.
oh, okay, there we go. Thank you. Now I can see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is one. Yep, that is one, Tony. Absolutely. And boy, it looks sort of like this too, right? It sort of has the same meaning, I think, but there's even more of an intertwining going on there, right? I mean, I can go to the book and look it up, right, and see officially what it means in different cultures, but you know, this to me means nice, beautiful connection and intertwining. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
I noticed when I was holding my hands like this, it felt good to do that. I enjoyed feeling the ring finger and the little finger holding each other. And then afterwards, I would notice that I put my other fingers together, not in this clasping way, but more like touching the fingertips together.
Yeah.
And that just felt normal, natural, and comforting somehow.
Let me tell you a little secret. You're onto something. So we practiced this one together, Pushpanjali, and I wanted to tell you a story. So thank you for reminding me about this one. This is considered a different hand posture, and it's a posture of balance, right? So every finger is balanced against the other. So I've taught this posture before because I think people do find it so relaxing and supportive. And I taught it as part of I brought it into my yoga classes over time, over, you know, months. And I noticed in a class where I didn't bring it up, one of my students, we were in a kind of a challenging standing balance posture. And I noticed him doing this. And I said, did you know what you were doing? And he said, no, I don't remember, but I feel more stable when I do this. And I said, because that's a gesture of balance. And whether it's physically, you know, having that extra support in the rest of your body, your arms and even your center, or maybe your mind is connected with this, meaning balance and a measure of stability. So I think that's pretty cool. Wonderful observation. Anybody else? Can't see you. I don't like not being with you, but.
And
That one that you just did could also be thought as connecting the left and the right in a circuit, so to speak.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's part of the balance of it, right? That's part of what's happening. A little circuit. Yeah. Lovely.
Yeah.
Great observation.
When I was a child, my grandmother taught me this. Have any of you remember?
Yeah.
So here's the church, here's the steeple. Open your hands and see all the people.
Yes.
Yes, lovely. And you know, I think any of the ones where the fingers are all intertwined like that, they really have that connection. And I think so many of us remember that that little story. And boy, what's could be more connected, right, than a community like this and all those little fingers intertwined. I love that. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm glad you got some good memories, again, tying back to our ancestors and what comes through our hands from our ancestors, but also in the present moment. So noticing your hands throughout the day, if that's all you end up doing, I think you'll learn a lot from yourself through that. So I encourage you to do that. Bill has a song for us, that another thing that I think you might remember, and feel free to join him He's going to lead us, and we've got the whole world in our hands.
So feel free to clap along if you want. This spirit moves you. Or sing.
Or sing.
We got the whole world in our hands. 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 We got our mamas and our papas in our hands. We got our mamas and our papas in our hands. We got our mamas and our papas in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We got our grandmas and our grandpas in our hands. We got our grandmas and our grandpas in our hands. We got our grandmas and our grandpas in our hands. We got the whole world in our hands. We got the earth and the water in our hands. We got the mountains and the valleys in our hands. We got the oceans and the rivers in our hands. We got the whole world 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 in our hands.
Yay. I wanted to make one more connection.
Please.
I have a deaf niece and a nephew, and they use sign language all the time. And when they're with their friends, there's very little noise going on. There's very little actual speaking, but their faces are extremely expressive. And their hands are extremely expressive. And some of the hands, the gestures that you were using, I recognize. I'm not, I don't know everything, but I know some signs. But what I really got was that the face is so expressive. That's how they communicate, both with the hands and with the face.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great observation as well. My daughter-in-law is a sign language interpreter, and I learned that as well watching her. And even, some things that might look like anger is really a sort of like seriousness, or maybe the face is expressing tension or whatever. Yeah, and I have no idea what's going on with the hands, but yeah, reading the face can be helpful as well. So hands, eyes, face, very connected. Yeah, thank you. Love hearing all these connections. Thank you, Bill. How fun was that? Well, let's sort of wrap this up. And I couldn't believe how many expressions, song or words that I found entitled Grandma's Hands. And I didn't do it on purpose, but I think there's something to be said for many of us recognizing what got passed through the ages by our ancestors through their hands to our hands. So this is another reading of Grandma's Hands by Elena Burnaby, and it's translated by Taki Runa. So it's a little different. Grandma, how do you cope with pain? With your hands, honey. If you do it with your mind instead of relieving the pain, it toughens even harder. With your hands, Grandma? Yes, our hands are the antenna of our soul. If you move them, knitting, cooking, painting, playing, or sinking them into the ground, you send care signs to the deepest part of you, and your soul lights up because you're paying attention to it. Then signs of pain will no longer be necessary. Hands are really that important? Yes, my daughter. Think of babies. They start to know the world through the touch of their hands. If you look at the hands of old people, they tell you more about their life than any body part. Everything that is done by hand is said to be done with the heart. Because it's really like this. Hands and heart are connected. Masseurs know well, when they touch someone with their hands, they create a deep connection. It is precisely from this connection that healing comes. Think of lovers. When they touch their hands, they make love in a more sublime way. My hands, Grandma, how long haven't I used them like this? Move them, my love. Begin to create with them, and everything within you will begin to move. The pain will not pass away. And instead, what you do with them will become the most beautiful masterpiece, and it won't hurt anymore because you have been able to transform its essence.